Hi, I'm Dr. Melissa Magnuson, and this is Lessons Across Species. I want to ask you something. Think about the most competent person you know, the one who keeps everything running, the one who knows where everything is, what needs to happen next, and how to hold the whole system together when things get hard. Now ask yourself, do they get credit for that? Or does that work just disappear into the background? Because I've been watching this pattern my entire career in animals, in medicine, and in my own family. And I think we are missing something fundamental about what leadership actually looks like. I was standing in a stall quite a long time ago when I first started in my career, watching a mare decide whether she would let me examine her foal. The colt was healthy, bright eyed, curious, the way young animals usually are. I reached forward, slow and deliberate, and the mare shifted. Just slightly, but enough. She placed her body between me and her baby. No pinned ears, no threat, no drama. She simply redirected the entire interaction. Nothing about it looked dramatic. Everything about it was decisive. That is what competent leadership actually looks like most of the time. Not a display, a repositioning, not volume, control of access. And in that quiet stall, the one setting the terms was a mother who was assessed the situation and made the call. Here's what behavioral ecology has spent decades documenting. The loudest, most visible competitive behaviors, like fighting, displaying dominance, are dramatically easier to observe than the quiet coordination work that actually sustains a group. And that asymmetry has shared which questions scientists even thought to ask. Take the elephant matriarch. She leads not through force, but through memory, specifically a working knowledge of the landscape, drought cycles, and migration routes accumulated over 50 or 60 years. Research has shown that herds led by older matriarchs respond more accurately to the calls of unfamiliar lions. That is a calibration that requires both experience and authority to act on it. Remove her from the equation, and the group loses that decision architecture. The knowledge isn't stored anywhere else. In orcas, post-reproductive females, the females who have stopped having calves themselves, continue leading their pods for decades. They guide foraging decisions that improve survival for the entire group, including their sons who remain closely bonded to their mothers for life. From a narrow reproductive standpoint, these females appear to have exited the story. From a systems standpoint, they are load-bearing. And then there are the lionesses. Male lions are large, conspicuous, and fight dramatically for control of their prides. They are also largely dependent on females for food. If the lionesses are the ones who hunt, they coordinate, they're the ones who sustain the social unit across generations. The males, they hold a position. The females run the system. Both are real, but only one of them photographs easily. So here's the distinction that actually matters. Competitive behaviors, fighting, displaying, displacing, are discrete, visible, and produce clear winners and losers. They are easy to record, easy to narrate, easy to reward. Maintenance behaviors, like holding relationships, managing access, tracking resources, remembering, are continuous, distributed, and produce outcomes that only become legible over time, if at all. They are hard to film and harder to explain. When a behavior is invisible to the observer, it tends to be invisible to the models that observers build. And when it's invisible in models, it gets undervalued in real systems those models are supposed to describe. The animals are not the issue. The issue is what we have taught ourselves to look for. I grew up on a farm. On paper, the household looked traditional. A father who farmed, a mother who stayed home, 2 daughters. If you were assigning roles from a distance, you might think you knew who was running things. But that is not what it felt like from the inside. My father worked relentlessly, long nights in the field, racing weather, trying to get crops in before rain or before the snow ended the season. My mother worked just as relentlessly. She fed everyone, managed the finances, ran the equipment when it was needed, helped in the barns, sewed our clothes, and somehow held it all together simultaneously. She was the center point, the one who knew where everything was, what needed to happen next, and how to keep the entire system moving when everything was pulling in different directions. The farm had a face. It also had a nervous system. Those were 2 different people. It never occurred to me growing up that I could not do what I wanted. That assumption cost me nothing and gave me everything. I did not understand until much later what it had cost her. Not in resentment, she had none that I ever saw, but in visibility, in recognition, in the simple acknowledgement that what she was doing was extraordinary. I think about her every time I watch a mare reposition herself in a stall. When I entered veterinary medicine, the field was roughly balanced by gender. Now it is somewhere between 70 to 80% female. That shift has happened within a single generation. And with it has come an increasing premium on relationship, communication, and longitudinal care. These were always part of good veterinary practice. They are now front and center. They are skills practitioners consistently say matter most. And yet, even in a profession now female by a significant majority, I still watch the same misreading happen in real time. A woman who is direct and decisive gets described differently than a man behaving identically. Leadership that doesn't match the expected template gets logged as something else: difficult, abrasive, hard to work with. None of those descriptions are accurate. All of them are revealing. The cost of this is not personal, it's clinical. It affects which guidance gets taken seriously, which expertise gets dismissed, which people responsible for keeping systems functional remain invisible as people doing so. Now, if you're a pet owner, here's what I want you to understand. The animal in front of you is embedded in a social structure you are probably only partially reading. The older cat who positions yourself between the food bowl and the younger cats without ever escalating to a fight. The quiet dog who places himself between a child and a stranger before you have even registered the stranger as relevant. The mare who shifts her weight just enough to change the outcome. These are not passive roles. They are active, skilled, and almost entirely invisible forms of coordination. When we miss them in animals, we misread behavior and make worse decisions about training, safety, and care. When we miss them in people, the consequences scale accordingly. The problem in both cases is the same. We built our models around the behaviors that were easiest to see, and then we called that complete. So here's the question I will leave you with. Not who holds the power, but what kinds of power have you never learned to look for? And once you start looking, what do you think you've been getting wrong? If this made you think, please share it with someone who needs to see it differently. And I'll see you in the next Lessons Across Species.